Hey everybody, Sean McCloskey here. I just wanted to give you a quick tip. I was talking to a coaching student today, and he was having a hard time wrapping his mind around a big project that he's got coming up. He's actually getting ready to take on a whole new approach to his real estate business. And he's basically taking on a new strategy that he's not taken on before, and he's getting overwhelmed with it. And the truth is, I think we all do this from time to time. I know I've done this in the past, where you've got something new you want to try. There's all these steps that it's going to take to get to try that new thing, and you start to get overwhelmed with the process. And I've got just a 3-step little formula that I think is going to help you get through that much easier. I've used this in my own business and in my own life, and I'll tell you, it helps you overcome the boundaries that are keeping you back from being able to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. So this thing he was going to try is he's basically taking on a new strategy in his real estate business, where instead of going from purchasing a house and rehabbing it and then renting it out, he's switching gears and he's going to start doing lease options, which is fine. It's a great strategy, but he's a little overwhelmed with it. And he started saying, man, I got to set up the website, and I've got to go out and talk to sellers, and I got to get my paperwork together, and then I've got to go out and find a title company that's going to be able to do all this stuff for me. And he started naming off all this stuff, and it was clearly he was very overwhelmed. So I said, here, what you got to do is just sit down first and foremost. I said, have you written any of this stuff out? Is it written down, or is it just in your head? And he said, no. He said, right now it's just all in my head. I said, okay, step one, you got to get it out of your head and get it down on paper. So step one, I said, I want you to take all this stuff that you're thinking about, all these steps that are overwhelming your brain right now, and get them out. Just start writing them down. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just write them down as fast as you can write them. And that's step one. So just puke them all out on the paper, if you will. So once they're all puked out all over the paper and you've got everything that you need, step two is to prioritize them. Because the fact is, he was starting to worry about what could potentially be step 12 of the process, and he hadn't even done step 1 yet. So the key to making this work and getting yourself to take action is to build momentum. But in order to build momentum, you got to start with step number 1. And so we have to figure out what step number 1 is. So obviously, he doesn't need to find a title company that can close these deals first. That's what happens after he already has a customer lined up, has already found someone to buy the house, and there's 15 other steps ahead of that. So I said, just write it down at first, but number 2, we have to prioritize this. So is finding a title company the very first thing that needs to happen? And of course the answer is no. So I said, what is one thing that you could put in place that would start to build momentum for you to really get the ball rolling? And once you're building the momentum, of course, then it's easy to keep the momentum going. But when all this stuff is in your brain, it's hard to even build momentum because you don't know where to start. So he said, I said, what's one thing that you could do right now to start building momentum? And he said, one thing that I know I'm going to need to find people that want to sell their house to me is I know I'm going to need a website. So one thing I could do, even if I don't have everything else figured out yet, he said, to market to these people, if I could just get like one simple page of the website set up, that would start to build momentum for me. And I said, okay, what's one thing you can do to get that website up? Do you know how to build a website? And he said, no, but I've got a guy who does. I said, okay, so what's one thing you can do to start building momentum today? He says, man, I could just call the guy about the website and set up a time with him to sit down with him and tell him what I want. And I said, great. Do you feel a little bit better right now? And he said, man, that's so simple. Yeah, I can do that. I can make one phone call today and I can start to build momentum. I said, great. Is that the first thing that needs to happen? And he really hadn't sat down and prioritized everything yet. The point is, that was enough to start building the momentum that he needed to start taking some action and making it happen. And a lot of times it's as simple as that, but we just don't know where to start, so we don't take any action. All right, so now step number 3 is actually taking all of those things and applying them to a timeline. And what I mean is, all of these things are going to need to get done. And now that they're kind of puked out on the paper, if you just look at all of them and start to consider everything that needs to get done to have this big project completed, you're going to get overwhelmed real quick. Well, rather than getting overwhelmed, wouldn't it be nice if you knew that you only had to work on one thing at a time, and that everything was going to get done over a period of time, whether it be a week or 3 months or whatever it happens to be? So one of the things I started doing just a few years ago is applying everything, big projects like this, just applying them to a timeline. So when can I realistically have these things done? So if I said, for example, I wanted to have my lease option business, for example, up and running here in the next 2 months, then what all needs to take place in the next 2 months? Well, now I look at the list that I already created, I look at everything in the order of priority, and I just start from the end and work my way backwards. All I have to do is say, okay, a website is something I'm going to need. Is that something I'm going to need sooner or later? Sooner, all right? So I'm going to put that at the beginning of my timeline. I'm going to have to talk to a title company at some point too to make sure a title company can close my deals. But is that something I need to do right away? Of course, the answer is no. So I'm going to put that towards the end of my timeline. And this is as simple as literally taking a whiteboard or even a white piece of paper, drawing a line where the left side of the line is today, the right side of the line is 3 months from now, and you literally just start taking these things and, you know, at the halfway point, maybe you need to call the title company. Well, that's where we put that in and we just assign a date to it. Now we've actually got a strategy. We not only have a goal that we're shooting for, but we know exactly how we're going to get there and how long it's going to take to get there. And the beautiful thing about this is it frees up your mind to be able to work on just what you need to work on today. If there's something else coming up that you're going to need to work on in 3 weeks from now, don't worry about it until 3 weeks from now. You'll get to that. This kind of forces you to only work on what's most important right now, and the rest of it, work on it later. Now, just to wrap this up, I will tell you, none of this works unless it's written down. It's got to be written down. If you try to keep all this stuff in your head, it'll just get all scrambled up. You'll add things, take things away. You won't have the correct order. You've got to actually write it down. And this doesn't matter if you're somebody who's really normally very structured and organized or somebody who's just a basket case. When you write it down, it becomes much easier to control, much more easier to manage, and you will accomplish it. All right, that's my tip for today. I hope you guys enjoyed.